It's been 10 years since the last Good Design, Bad Design. I'm sorry, not years, episodes. Whatever. It's Good Design, Bad Design Volume 13. Video games do in fact still have graphic design in the current year, so we'll keep talking about them. Like always, we're looking at things like menus, UI, UX, color choice, font choice, JoCat, character design, anything. Wait, what?
That's right, I'm gonna help teach you all about the presentation of information.
Nice. Well, if you're here, I'm gonna go study up on some things and come back. And you too can learn some new things with today's episode sponsor, CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service with thousands of documentaries and non-fiction titles from the world's best filmmakers. Really good stuff. It's like Netflix or Hulu but for nerds, history buffs, and scientists. You all like learning about the intricacies of video games. Now you can learn about the intricacies of life with shows like The Lightbulb Moment that show you how people figured out how to stream video online, or the history of mauve, the world's first synthetic dye. Go to curiositystream.com/designdoc for unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and nonfiction series. Use promo code DesignDoc and you'll save 25% off, which means you can get it all for only $14.99 for the whole year. That's way cheaper than Netflix. It's just $125 a month. Click the link in the description below or go to curiositystream.com/designdoc and explore the universe on CuriosityStream. Alright, while I get my stuff ready, JoCat, I'm handing you the keys to take this out for a spin.
Okay, what do I do?
Take that key, move off screen, hit the red button, and say Good Design into the keys. And the episode will do the rest.
Into the keys?
Yep, try it.
Okay. Good design. Oh, cool, it did the graphics and everything.
I'll be over here if you need anything. Bye.
Alright, time to rub my grubby hands all over this video. So, for most games, the heads-up display is something done purely for the player's sake. It's never really mentioned in universe, or if it is, it's usually one and done. It's just sort of there, hanging out. This is your health bar. This is your ammo. This is your map. How do you know these things? You and the UI have reached an understanding. Some games make more of an effort on explaining how your character may know the information. They have a magical sixth sense. They were given a map, and this is just an abstraction of it. They wear a powered suit that displays a floating UI to the character, which is an abstraction in universe, but it's really there, but it's an abstraction. Oh god, my head. This is called Diegetic UI, where the UI is actually present in the game world and either acknowledged or interacted with by the characters. Like in Journey, where the scarf stands in for your jump power and—
We already talked about Journey Scarf. In this episode over here. It's really good.
Right. In Dead Space, Isaac's armored suit displays every single—
We talked about diegetics in Dead Space too. It's also really good.
Well then, Astroneer? We good?
Yeah, we're good. What's Astroneer? Sounds neat.
Alright! Astroneer is an open-world resource-gathering crafting game all about exploring and expanding on various randomly generated alien worlds. But here's the fun part. Astroneer pushes Diegetic UI to the absolute limit. Nearly everything is an element of the in-game world. From your oxygen and energy on your backpack, to the batteries on your tractor or rover, to how much storage space each platform has. The task menus on every single workstation are diegetic. Astroneer even takes this to the smallest of things, like if you're spending plant material to power a generator, you can actually see how much of the plant material is left. If you're gathering ground for terraforming, the tank that contains the soil that you've collected will show up as green when it's full. The storage units will show each resource you fill it with on the inside so that if you're familiar with how the different resources look, you can tell at a glance what's stored in there. You can see how many oxygen tethers you have in the bundle on your backpack that you can place before you run out. The workstation menus even zoom up to the screen as though you're pressing the buttons on it. You even get to flip up a little safety cover on the button like you're about to launch a nuke. I am totally immersed. Once you understand the game's basic systems, red circle means you can place something there, bar means you can fill it with something, everything else becomes second nature. I don't know what this Toblerone is, but it has a power plug, and it probably needs to be powered to unlock it. I know that this storage unit has more storage than this platform because there's more red circles, i.e. physical spots to put stuff onto. What's that weird canister in the distance? I don't know, but it's half filled with something. And all this is presented with this diegetic UI so well that the game doesn't need to say a single word for the player to quickly understand it, because it can be very easy to make such a design style very clunky and confusing. Bad design. I've always wanted to do that. Speaking of, although diegetic UI can enhance immersion and stylize a game, the rules of good design apply to diegetic UI just as much as for non-diegetic UI. You don't get a pass just for trying to be cool. In fact, diegetic UI can sometimes run into its own unique design problems. Maybe the nature of the UI being in the world will mean that the world gets in the UI's way, like in the culling. The scoreboard is displayed up in the sky, Hunger Games style. It's a cool novelty, but it means that in order to check your score, you have to physically look up there. If you're near a tree or a building, too bad, you only get to see the top half of the scoreboard now. This also means that there's no way to check the scoreboard while you're indoors. UI that tries to be diegetic more than it tries to be clear can lead to its own problems. Perhaps the diegesis is way too subtle, like Rob's rocket fuel indicator in Super Smash Bros. You can see it on his side, but most of the time the characters in Smash are way too small and the gameplay is way too chaotic to even notice that it's there. Alternatively, it could be too cluttered, like the inventory in the forest. Sure, early on in the game, you only have a handful of items and you can easily pick out what you need. Late in the game, though, you've got an entire survivor's backpack full of stuff. Without proper hierarchy or gridded placement, it can be a huge chore to get used to where everything is. The Force is likely doing this very deliberately to make it feel like you're actually throwing together a real backpack on a real survival trip in the forest, but would it be too much to ask for some player control over where things go? At the very least, over time the player will eventually get used to it. But the same can be said for stepping on hot coals. Some diegetic UI can look plain tacky. Alone in the Dark 2008 shows the main character's health through ripped off parts of his clothing and revealing damaged skin underneath. Sort of. The wounds are textures on top of the clothes. Yeah, that looks great. Good job. Hey, look at that. It's got a clunky diegetic inventory too. Speaking of health bar replacements, you all know the bloody screen effect popularized by modern first-person shooters. I don't need to see what's in my peripheral vision, just stick some strawberry jam on there. Now that's realistic. Well, it could be worse. It could be the health bar in Jurassic Park Trespasser. Diegetic UI is a tricky balancing act and risk for a reward, where said reward can be something incredible and elevates the game further than the sum of its parts. However, the risks need to be accounted for, lest it actually detract from the game and mean that maybe a more traditional UI setup would have been just fine. Visual style and immersion be damned.
I wonder if you could implement a diegetic UI into a character creation system.
Haha, yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. Haha, no siree, not one thing.
So, when did you say you'd be more free to work on your side of this collaboration?
Oh boy, look at the time, I gotta go do some important business.
This Steam notification says you just launched Final Fantasy XIV.
Like I said, important business. Anyway, here's your keys back, bye!
I played 2. I would have done a Savage. Wait, did you lick the keys?
Bye-bye!
Good design. So, last summer, I found out about a little game called Chicory, A Colorful Tale. It's a cute, heavily stylized game about bringing color to the world. No, not that one. Or that one. Or that one. Nope. 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 That's Shaun White skateboarding. That's the one. Trust me, it's good. It seemed like a total good design bait to me, so I checked it out. And it was worth talking about, but not for the reasons I first thought. Developed by the teams that created Wandersong and Celeste, Chicory is a top-down Zelda-esque action-adventure game that takes place in a world stylized like a kid's coloring book. The game uses a brush mechanic to do a lot of things, not only solving puzzles and navigation, but to decorate the environment to your heart's desire. There are a ton of secret unlockable brushes and painting tools to discover in the world too. The game is charming and explores themes of artistic self-discovery. It's a nice, pleasant time, the kind of stylish indie title that we've talked about a lot before. Then I looked at the menus. They're great. Nothing says presentation of information quite like a well-designed menu. Chicory's menus are incredibly clear and friendly while having deep, granular customization options that let you tailor how you want your game experience to go. The menu's text options are worded in a conversational way that helps fit them better to the game's vibe rather than cryptic on-off commands or jargony text about shader options that you might not really understand. I mean, you still have vertical sync, but that's about as technical as it gets. The menu's charm got me to cycle through all the options just to see what the devs had written. For fun. The sheer number of things you can customize here is commendable too. There's your standard options to turn off things like screen shake, flashing effects, and controller rumble, but there's also more detailed options for special situations. If you can't or don't want to deal with how fast the game can play, you can adjust a multiple to make it slower. Have a hard time holding buttons down? Have a toggle. How much health do you want? There's a default, but if you'd have more fun with more health or invincibility, go ahead. Want special stylistic fonts and text effects to show up, or do you want to keep it simple and readable? Want a warning about sensitive content? You got it. Do you want wet sounds? No? Done. Chicory's menu of accessibility options make it an extremely considerate game while still keeping its intended design clear. Chicory also gets points for its charming and immersive use of an in-game hint system. The game has a couple of different tiers of hints and advice that appear in the form of your character's parents. You call up mom in a phone booth and she'll give you a general hint of where to go, and then will mention that your dad, who over-explains things, wants to talk. If you opt in, he will lay out exactly what you need to do. It's like the cutest hint system I've ever seen. Chicory's hint system and menu accessibility options are considerate and friendly, well integrated with the game's charm, and are a benchmark that other games should strive to reach.
Bad design.
Most games have a ton of stuff that they need to tell a player. Health bars, radar, labels, indicators, inventory drops, energy, cooldowns, mana, ammo counts, boons and buffs, statuses, info dumps, warnings, alerts, thematic decoration. There's just a lot that a player needs to be aware of. There's a strong tendency to want to cram more and more things on screen at once, but that's how you get this. One of the bigger jobs of a UI designer is to figure out how to convey a bunch of information without the UI feeling busy, overly dense, and confusing. And a powerful tool to do that is empty space. Empty space might seem like wasted space. Beginning designers often feel compelled to just fill an empty space with something. But just because the space is empty doesn't mean it's not doing anything. Empty space organizes a layout. Empty space defines the boundaries and creates proximity between objects to help group them together. Tiny differences in the space between objects can make it easier for your eye to snap right to where a bit of information lives. Without differences in spacing, elements crowd together, clouding up where one space begins and one ends. That ambiguity can lead to confusion, which can create that sense that a design is busy. Time to break out the old Persona 5 UI again. No, I will not stop talking about it. At first glance, Persona 5's chaotic motion graphics and hyper-dynamic battle screens seem overwhelming, but look at the empty space. There's a defined region for the party health and combat options, plus a lot of space between them and the other different elements of the UI. That space groups together the items. Different elements look chaotic, but they don't cover up the action on the center of the screen, overlap with each other, or move behind one another. There's tons of stylish flair, but the elements stay in their zones to keep the screen uncluttered. Don't believe me? Let's look at some games that don't use empty space as effectively. Let's find a JRPG that doesn't have as much flash. Let's see. Ephemeral Fantasia. Oh yeah, that's a lack of style if I've ever seen one. Ephemeral Fantasia's combat system is pretty basic, and its interface is too, but it doesn't use its empty space as effectively. A lot of the UI elements can overlap in awkward ways. Menus on menus, information text, party status bars, and the actual battlefield all fight for your attention in the same part of the screen. You even have this camera mode indicator in the upper right corner taking up unnecessary space. Just have it disappear when you're not changing the camera. The game's battle log lives in the upper left corner and rattles off events as they happen. The information is often redundant with the usual JRPG damage text and status icons, takes up a lot of real estate, and starts to cut into the center of the screen, overlapping the in-game action. What about a game with a little more flair? Digimon World Data Squad for the PS2 is an RPG with an AI for each Digimon which actually has a preference for what moves to do next. Based on how the battle is going, your Digimon's emotions change, and so will the moves it wants to do. Cool. So what moves do you want to do? So it turns out, the more the Digimon wants to do a move, the more times the move's hexagon will appear in this lovely grid. It's a really interesting way to play into the idea that your character has an opinion of its own for how things are going, but it can be completely overwhelming to grasp what's going on. The repetition of the tiles has a gameplay purpose, but it still makes the interface extremely crowded, overlapping and obscuring other elements of the UI with redundant info. The tiles deserve points for creativity, but probably could have used another pass to keep the UI from becoming so overwhelming. If you're making a game UI, keep an eye out for elements that overlap others, don't crowd elements together, and let your UI breathe, and you should be able to avoid some of these problems.
Good design.
Man, remember Advance Wars? No one's talking about Advance War. Oh, okay, never mind. Everyone's talking about Advance Wars. But it's for a good reason. Advance Wars is an incredible tactics game. Super easy to play, hard to master, and filled floor to ceiling with all the charm and character you can fit in a game about endless war. They're probably fine. So much of that charm comes from the game's excellent character design and sprite work on both the commanding COs and the units. Every CO has a cartoonish personality and memorable design that adds a ton of character and ties into their playstyles. Sammy's urban Rambo vibe hints at her strong infantry and capture power. Max's ridiculous SpongeBob anchor arms signal he's a brute force close range type. Olaf's clearly not gonna let some snow stand in his way, especially not his Japanese iteration. Grit is tall, lanky, and laid back, just like his preferred unit range. Yeah, that works. The character designs work as a shorthand reminder for their personal gameplay strengths. After years of not touching the series, I jumped back in a few months ago and it was easy to get up to speed. Advance Wars brings the charm of the battlefield through its sprite work and animations. The sprites for each unit are clear at a glance, and between unit types have enough differences to stay interesting. Every sprite uses excellent iconography with distinct silhouettes and shapes, even when units are pretty similar. The mech silhouette is broken up with a big bazooka crossbar to separate from the standard infantry, and designates its purpose as a slower anti-tank unit. The little tank is 2/3 the size of the medium tank and can zip around the map quicker. From the long, thin, double-barreled anti-air and the tiny recon car, to every plane and the alien-looking neo-tanks, every unit in the game has some distinct feature that distinguishes it visually. Add in just a hint of bouncy animation on the map screen, and your forces are brought to life without a lot of extra work. The battle animations do some heavy lifting too. A massive chunk of the game is unit-on-unit violence, so putting fun animations in there helps break up any monotony that could have crept in over a half-hour-long battle. The fights are all based on HP and percentages, and the animations liven up something that could have been very dry math. Aside from the infantry, each faction has a few unique unit designs that appear only in these battle animations, either different uniforms or even different types of planes and tanks, often based on real-world military equipment. But it's not all that much different here. That could be improved upon. But who would make their own version of Advance Wars? No one. The segment's over. Wait, that's not right. 2019's Wargroove is the sort of fan-driven, fed-up-with-waiting spiritual successor you love to see, right next to Stardew Valley and Freedom Planet. It's just Advance Wars, but with a unique setting and 10 years worth of stylistic and gameplay improvements, and meticulous attention to detail in the game's art and animation. The whole game is set in a medievalish fantasy setting, but each faction is of a slightly different flavor. The classic European medieval Cherrystone, the undead armies of Falheim, the nature-aligned Florin, and the Japanese and Clockwork's Heaven Song. The focus has shifted though, from the CO equivalent commanders to the units. The commanders are unique units with their own sprite work, but the game outdoes itself with the diversity of its faction units. There are a lot of one-to-one translations from Advance Wars. Infantry becomes swordsmen, mechs are pikemen, tanks are knights, APCs are wagons, bombers are dragons, and so on. But each unit has a much more unique design, faction to faction. There's just so much detailed sprite animation the game has to put out for each unit. Every one of them has its own quirks and style, beyond anything the Advance Wars series tried. And yet, they find ways to apply different thematic skins to a unit while still making it identifiable as equivalent to that of other factions. Whether the unit is a knight on horseback, an archer, a dragon, or a witch on a broomstick, each keeps the most recognizable traits while mixing in the visual quirks of their respective factions. The Floran Knight reads as a knight at a glance, but the knight rides a buffalo instead of a horse. The Heavensong Dragon is entirely mechanical, but still a dragon. The artists at Chucklefish took into account the size, pose, clothing, weapons, and more for each unique unit, but still fit it within a basic template for each type to keep it recognizably a part of the set. It's a ton of extra work to do, but the results speak for themselves. Wargroove has done a great job of adding life and variety to their units while keeping them all feeling part of the set.
Bad design.
That's weird. The interstitial card just stopped. Does this link do anything? Oh no. No. Oh god. Oh crap.
Bad design.
The episode is all virusy now. Crazy bus. Jeez. No. What's going on? What's with the music? No.
Good design.
It's Spamton. We're not talking about Deltarune. What? Get out of here. I'm gonna have to format my computer. Oh my god, my HUD. My 14 HUD. What'd they do to you? This is gonna be such a pain to fix.
Hey, Dan, I tossed you my car keys by accident, and what is happening in this episode?
JoCat, help. The episode's breaking. Find a plug or something.
I got it!
You did it. Thanks, JoCat. You've canonically saved Design Doc. I now owe you one collaboration video.
Alright. Well, I'm gonna go play video games when I should really be working on a script instead.
Me too, JoCat. Me too.